Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer. He's on the East Coast. We're closing out the week here with playa props on the docket here with 8 games on Friday to close out this work week. Also have best bets up as we do each and every weekday. So go ahead and like and subscribe to the page and continue to follow along all season with us. Also head to thelines.com and use the NBA prop finder tool that we have up there to make sure that you can see all the bets and odds available to you for all of these books giving us bets this season. Nate, let's go ahead and get into your first NBA play a prop here, Mr. Beard, James Harden.
Yeah, James Harden playing the best basketball of his career. I won't say he's putting up the biggest numbers, but he is playing the best. And time to target him with 27.5 points and assists if you want a combined bet there. I think you'd also put a half unit on the double-double, which is plus 115 at Caesars. Like most books are offering juiced up 8.5 assists or even money on 9.5 assists. And I mean, he's not scoring. I mean, he could, but I think he easily scores 10 points along with those 10 assists. He's averaging 10 assists per game in 13 games since Christmas. He's a plus 156, also giving you 17.5 points in that span to, generate this prop. But the last two, he's been particularly hot, looking in rhythm, 23.5 points along with the 10 assists. And, usually we look at potential assists, Josh, as being like, look at all these assists left on the table. But there's another way to consider it, right? 10 assists in his last two, only 11.5 potential assists. That to me says the Clippers are so efficient offensively that when he's making a good pass, they are just knocking it down. Like he's kicking it out to a wide open Paul George or Kawhi Leonard. He does average 15 potential assists in those 13 in the larger sample size and has the second most points created off assists behind Tyrese Halliburton in that span. So let's look at the Raptors, though. Ain't the same D you're used to. Not at all. No new coach Darko, first of all. It's not Nick Nurse. The personnel is now different after all these trades, and Pirtle's still out. And now Emmanuel Quickly out, who would probably be the primary defender on Harden most of the night. Last 8, no Pirtle. They have the second worst defensive rating in the league, allow the second highest field goal percentage, third most paint points, sixth most assists. They allowed the second most assists per game in December and second worst 3-point percentage in December. So that was even with Pirtle in there. And they were still a very bad defense. They allow very few free throw attempts, which to me says more assists, less people getting hacked. And Harden, his points, you love to see the 3-point percentage that they've allowed like 40% because he's getting most of his points off these step back threes. Like that's where the points live or die. If he's 2 for 9, maybe he doesn't get there on the points. But if he starts to get hot, which he has been recently, shooting 50% from deep, he's probably clearing 20 points and nearing 10 assists.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, you're good at finding the times to take James Harden. I definitely agree. And I'm, what they're doing out in LA, like we're all waiting for the shoe to drop on the Clippers. And the only shoe to drop would be like someone just disappears. And that doesn't seem to be the case, right? Like wild times to bet on the Clippers. But James Harden is the engine that goes, and you are not wrong. Like the best is subjective when you say he's playing the best of his, right? It's subjective in that sense. But if you want to like put some criteria on it, most fun to watch James Harden, not even a question. Would much rather watch this than what he was doing in Houston. And if you want to talk about like most effective team basketball player, that's not even a question that this is the best he's ever played. Sans like playing 22 minutes a game in OKC, that level of James Harden, right? When he was a little bit more facilitator. But yeah, I'm with him, man. Like good stuff for Harden right now. But let me go to a same game parlay because I do think that there's some pretty good value here in this Bucks and Cavs game. I like Brook Lopez. He gets 4+ rebounds no matter what against these Cavs team. He sometimes gets 10 and then sometimes gets 4. So that's like his range. And the thing is he has very consistent minutes. So I'm putting him in the same game parlay, but I'm putting him at 4+ boards because that's what he always does. I'm taking Giannis to get 30+ because you could take him at 35 and it would be a good bet against this Cavs team where he averages 38 a game over his last like 5 against them. And then I'm also going to throw in Donnie Mitchell 25 points. I don't think you keep him under 25 2 in a row like that, although he was at 23 as well. So one more made basket and we're there. And he's consistently going over 25 without DG, the PG, Darius Garland this year. So all three of those guys together on FanDuel is plus 138. And it's a little bit worse on DraftKings. And I didn't look it up on a couple of the other big boy books, but definitely shop it and make sure you get the best juice. I like that those three together And there's a couple. I mean, for Brook, like I said, I said this in the video where we're talking about best bets for the Bucks to win. I like him to always be in there when it's he and Jared Allen going at each other. It's been that way honestly since Jared Allen was on the Nets, and you see Brook Lopez's minutes not necessarily spike because he gets 30 minutes against other teams, but they hold right at about the 30 minutes. He doesn't really come out and play the 22, 25 minutes that sometimes they like to keep him to when they don't really need him because he's not very young anymore. Brooks Lopez has been around forever. Then with Giannis, it's, I mean, everything that you kind of talked about, you like him to be the top scorer in this game, which gets you about even money, or 30 points with the money line for the Bucks. Same concept here. I like that too. But the 30 points for Giannis is like, that's his floor, dog, against this team. Like, that's where we're at here. Like I said, especially on offense, Brook does play a little bit more down low, and he pulls Jared Allen away for sure. But he's also just, it's he and Jared Allen wrestling, and Jared Allen doesn't have the time to play off of Brook Lopez, or the ability really to play off of him and try to help out as much with Giannis. And that's why Giannis definitely does not, he doesn't see the same sort of four-man wall defense from this team that he might see from other teams that have a bit more depth in the front court, which this team is just sorely lacking without Evan Mobley. So that's why I feel good about him. And then with Donovan Mitchell, like, last game was a bad game for him. It was a bad shooting game. The Bucks did a good job coming out and defending him. I still think he's the only guy that really gets his in this one. And it's going to take 3-point shooting. And that's why I think it's like, okay, I like the fact that he did not have a good shooting game last time. And I can come back and go, all right, well, he's going to regress back to the mean one game later against the same squad in the same place. Like, if you look at the last 10 games for him as well, he's failed to go over 25 3 times. And in the next game, he went over easily 26, 26, 45, 30, right? So he's going over in these games after he's not getting 25. So I'll keep that pattern going with him.
Yeah, and the last time he was at Boston, he had 31 in the second game out. Right. I mean, he kills Boston. He does very well against Milwaukee too. That would be the one thing to make you nervous about Giannis top scorer, but Giannis to get 30 with the new coach bump, yeah, completely on board with that. Brook Lopez as well. Like, he's being used much differently, much more like they're comfortable using him in the old scheme. Under the interim coach here. So yeah, I'm on board with all that. Makes sense to me. Moving to Memphis and Orlando should be a pretty choppy game. That's why I want to get the rebounds in here for Vince Williams Jr. It's a 212 total, and you go over 20 and a half points rebounds for Vince at very good odds. I don't think the books have really caught up yet. I mean, it was juiced like minus 120 for the same prop in other matchups. And I think the odds are better because the perception is that Orlando's tough to score on. Yes, they're very good defense, but they're also a bad offense on the road, and the total tells it all. The ninth worst field goal shooting on the road equals the ninth most rebounds for opponents. The last 8, they have the third worst offensive rating in the league, and they're 16th in rebounding rate. They're not doing particularly well on the either end boarding up. Vince, he has nearly a 20% defensive rebounding rate. And he's playing alongside Jaren Jackson, who is not a rebounder, as we know. So that pretty much gives you a good feeling. 12.7 rebound chances per game in his last 6, and only deferred on 1.2 of those. He just got the contract. He just got locked into a huge minute spike because Bane, Smart, Derrick Rose, even maybe Santi Aldama still out here, among other guys for the Grizz. And in these 6, getting 34 minutes, he's getting 18 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists. He is a 0 plus minus on a bad team, which is always a feather in your cap if you can at least hold the fort. So yeah, I'm gonna keep riding this train with Vince.
Yeah, the only time it didn't work out was once since all these guys went down, and Jaren Jackson Jr. took 24 field goals in that game that Vince Williams failed to get his against Minnesota. But this is another good spot. Like shooting guards, I haven't always been successful against the Magic this season. Vince Williams ain't your typical shooting guard, right? When he goes to the rim right now, it's pretty impressive to watch. Like he's a small forward as far as the body type and the way that he attacks the rim. It's like, it's really, really impressive. You love to watch those lefties who just know how to use the glass on that side of the board. And like, he gets all the way to the rim, man. Like, he bullies you there. So he's not your typical dude who you like, oh, well, he's going to get shut down around the perimeter. It's like, he doesn't care. He can shoot that thing for sure. But like, he's down to go inside. Turning into one of my favorite players for sure, really quickly, because I love his tenacity. But let me go into my last one here, rather, which is the same game. We'll stick around Memphis. where I was talking about how I really want to take Memphis, but like they were a better spot against the Heat, honestly, than they are in this game at home, where they're not as good as home dogs, like 3-9 against the spread this season in those situations. So, more importantly, though, for Jaren Jackson Jr., he's a tough matchup. So I'm going to go under for him. Points and rebounds. I got 32.5 on points bet, so it's a little bit better because it's mostly 31.5, and I still get minus 110 if you have the ability to use PB there. But for Triple J, like, I mean, it's a good time to target going under against a power forward when you're talking about the Magic, especially a power forward that really only shoots threes and only shoots or goes all the way to the rim. And since getting Franz back, especially, and having, and probably more importantly, Wendell Carter Jr. back, this team is right back to having a top 5 paint defense, to having a top 5 defensive field goal percentage inside of 5 feet. And that's where Jaren Jackson Jr. is shooting. It's either inside of 5 feet. If you look at his spray chart, there's just a big sea of nothing in between, like 5 feet around the basket and all the way out around the perimeter, right? That's where he's shooting, is just out there and all inside. And that's literally where Orlando is best at defending, with the fact that Wendell Carter Jr. is down there. Even Goga Batadze is your backup, who's not moving very far away from the basket, even if he's on defense, which helps you when Triple J is coming in. So that's why they're number 2 limiting points per game to power forwards, 9th in limiting rebounds, 4th in limiting assists, and 3rd in limiting 3-pointers to that position as well. So even when you get a guy like Triple J who can pull his defender away from the basket, I mean, his defender is going to be a versatile dude who's 6'10", just like he is. So it's not going to be a good matchup for him, like with all those guys we just mentioned. Even Wendell Carter Jr. taking on that matchup is a good matchup. He's a very versatile, good shot blocking defender. So with all these guys playing him back, that's, like I said, they're back to that. And it's really not like Triple J has had some good rebounding games against this team. But now that without Ja, it's actually, I've been talking about this with his rebounds. Like, he's pulled away from the basket everywhere that he's playing. He's not quite the same, just like stay down low. He has to do a little bit of everything. His rebounds have not been the same, especially because where he's playing on offense is a little bit more as like the point guard. So the offensive boards haven't quite been there quite as much for him. So I think the combo of the two to go under 32.5 is a good play here.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't go against the Magic here because they have been off since Monday, and it was kind of a scheduled loss for them on Monday, right? They gave up 126 to Cleveland on the back-to-back with Franz coming back. His first game, they completely shut down Miami, though, like held them to 87. I think you could look at a Grizzlies under team total here, even at home. I mean, they don't score much, but yeah, I love getting Triple J with the under on rebounds. Is there a worse rebounder who's 6'10" or taller? Like, he's just absolutely allergic to mixing it up down there and getting these boards is part of the reason Memphis struggles so much, because they don't have Steven Adams to bail him out. So yeah, I mean, he might get 26 points, but like 5 rebounds seems right to me.
Yeah. Give me a minute and I'll think of a worse one around his size, but it's going to take a second. So that definitely adds to your point there, but that is all the time we have for you guys at Player Props. So continue to follow along. Check out the best bets that we have as well for you. And until we see you next, happy betting.